Welcome to this video. We're glad that you guys are watching this, but this is a supplemental video to a podcast that Anthony and I recorded. The title of that podcast was called $20,000 of Income at 20 Years Old, Legacy Planning with IBC. If you guys have not watched that podcast or listened to that podcast yet, please go back and watch that before proceeding and watching this video. And additionally, if you guys have no idea what we mean by IBC, is go watch the video that Anthony created that is Infinite Banking Concept Explained in 12 Minutes by a Recovering CPA. And we'll have both of those links in the show notes of this video, so it's an easy one. And then come back and stick around and watch this video with us so that you guys have an idea of what we're going to be doing here. Anthony, if you could maybe give these guys just a minute or so review of kind of what got us to this point of presenting this information to them.
Well, I would say, for one, I got blessed with a grandson.
Congrats.
Thank you. And one of the things we wanted to do is to help him was to get his own infinite banking design policy.
Nice.
So we designed that policy. But then what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to illustrate what we could do with the policy. Oftentimes when people are evaluating infinite banking, they're so focused on the illustration and the cash value, but is so much bigger than just the illustration. So what we thought we would do is, hey, let's put some numbers to this. Let's kind of create a case study. If we're creating this policy, let's put some examples together if we were to use it. And just to give some, what we're going to use here is the policy we're doing is we're funding, it's $5,000 a year. Okay. Now, and a policy doesn't need to be that big. It can be bigger. It can be smaller, right? It's just whatever fits into your family goals. Okay. And so what we did here is we wanted to illustrate is, what if we were to buy real estate and we would use a policy to fund that, and then we would use the rental income to repay the policy. So what we used here is an actual example of a house that I actually bought in October. The house was $100,000. It's actually 95, but I'm just kind of trying to make things a little bit easier.
Keeping it simple for me.
Right.
Round numbers. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah. And what we did is we got a 30-year fixed mortgage. We locked that in at 3.5%.
Nice.
Now, we had to put in 20% for the down payment plus some closing costs. That kind of really came to $23,000, but again, we're trying to be a little more conservative. And so I like easy numbers too.
Yeah.
And what we did with the policy loan rate, we use 4%.
Okay.
Now, that's a loan rate on his policy. However, we also use what we call the life equity line of credit. Well, mine right now, my interest rate is 3.25. So we're kind of using it a little bit, being a little bit more conservative. And we're using the cash-on-cash return of 10%, meaning if we put in $25,000, the down payment, we're going to have $2,500 a year in income.
Awesome. So thanks for covering those assumptions, Anthony. And you had mentioned that the policy that you funded is $5,000 a year, and you can see that over here on the left-hand side with the age, which is the year, and then also the cash value that's going to build up, right?
Yeah, I want to make one more comment about the assumptions, right? We're shooting this in April of 2022, so everybody's talking about inflation, right? Now, even without inflation, it's impossible to get real sound numbers if we were to illustrate this over 20 years.
Agreed, yeah.
Right? So many things are going to change. So what we decided to do is, since we can't predict the future, let's just take a snapshot and assume the facts of today continue on going forward. And we know that the loan interest on a 30-year fixed mortgage is going to be more than 3.5.
It will go up. It has gone up.
Right? But here's the thing we have to keep in mind. Inflation does a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's focused on the loan rate, all right? That interest rate is going to go up. But there's other things inflation affects too, right? With inflation, it should actually increase the value of the home. Also, with inflation, you should be able to charge more rents. And in the analysis we've done here is we're assuming we never raise rents. Okay, that the house never appreciates. So I know some things of this analysis are going to be different for the worse, but there's also some things that are going to be different for the best. So the main goal of this isn't what the numbers, isn't 20,000 at 20 years, even though that sounds cool, right? But it's the point is infinite banking is much more than the cash value on the policy. And that's what we're going to illustrate here.
Awesome. Love it. Let's get started here, right? So
Let's do it.
Let's dive down over here. Let's take a look at this cash values if you could. I think you kind of told us what the premiums are. There's nothing special on that, right? Just $5,000 a year. And then what do we got over here?
So what we're looking at for, if you notice in year 6, we have cash value of $25,960. So we have $25,000. So we can use that as a down payment. So we buy house number 1. And it's not until year 10 until the value is more than 50. So we can buy house 2. But then in year 13, we're more than 75, so we can buy house 3. Then in year 16, we can buy our 4th house. And in year 18, we can buy 5th and 6th. So one thing I think that is interesting about here, it takes us 6 years before we can buy house number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But then it takes 4 years and we can buy house number 2. And if you know, then each year it's getting more and more efficient. So from year 5 and 6, we're only waiting 2 years. But so what we're doing here is we're taking a policy loan of $25,000, using that for the down payment. Then we're taking that rent or the net cash flow from the rental property, using that to repay the loan. Now, we estimated that we should be able to pay that back within 10 years. I'm sorry, in 10 years. Okay, so what that means is house number 1, that down payment of $25,000 is fully repaid by year 16. So we can recycle that $25,000 another time. Then in year 20, house number 2, that down payment gets paid off. So we can buy another house. So originally what we did is we just took the snapshot at year 20.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what that looks like. Okay. So kind of what we have here is at year 20, we have the mortgage balance for each one. So that's a total of $550. On the right, we have the policy loan. Now, house number 1 and 2 have been paid off. Okay. So now if we look at, let's look at our net worth.
Okay.
Now we have 8 homes, and 8 homes at $100,000 is how much, Cameron?
$800,000.
Man, you are good.
Good.
Right. But for one, that's cool. He almost has $1 million of real estate. But we also have some mortgages,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have mortgages of $550. So thus the net real estate, let's say $250,000.
Okay.
Okay, but we also have the policy. Now, the cash value on that policy right now shows at year 20 is $150,000. But we also have policy loans, so we have to back that out of. So we have a net cash value inside our policy of $54,000. But here's what we need to do. We need to add the two together. The assets we have inside the policy and the assets we have outside. And that's $304,000.
Great example. And again, I think this is what's often missed, right? You said this before is, man, when we're looking at illustrations or people are looking at illustrations and trying to project out to the future, what they do is they just focus solely on the cash value. But hopefully kind of the takeaway here is going to be the fact that there's actually almost twice as much. There's more than twice in total net worth when you take that cash and you put it to work and you do something with it.
Yeah, exactly, Cameron. It's not about the value in the policy. It's the value the policy has created.
Now, Anthony, I will say that if anybody's listened to us for a while, we do tend to de-emphasize the value of net worth.
We do.
Right?
We do.
What do we typically focus on?
We're focused on cash cash flow, right? And the passive income. We follow a lot of what Robert Kiyosaki says, and our goal is for our passive income to be more than our monthly expenses. So that's cool. You have a net worth of $300,000. Okay. But it's even bigger than that, because you could have $300,000, say, in raw land or in gold in your safe, but it's not producing cash flow. So to me, I'd rather have some assets that are producing cash flow, no matter what the value of the value of my net worth is.
Yep. Did you touch on the cash flow at year 20? Right.
Oh yeah. So what we have here is we have 8 homes, and if we have cash flow of 2,500 each, that's $20,000. So at year 20, he has $20,000 of passive income, and he's got a net worth of about $304,000.
Yeah. Awesome.
And imagine being 20 years old and having that establishment. And what we're hoping to accomplish is, for one, we want to teach that next generation about money and building true wealth through passive income. But also, this should give him the ability to have some options.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe he's passionate about some career that makes no money. He doesn't have to worry about that. He can actually pick a career and do things because he wants to do it, not because he has to do it.
Anthony, what you mentioned there was just kind of the education piece. And I scrolled back over here to the left because I was looking at kind of the ages, right? First and second houses, Vance, he's going to be 10, right? But let's look at this third house when he's 13 years old, right? We're buying rental properties in certain markets. There's a level of due diligence that needs to be done. I can imagine, I could absolutely see you taking Vance and flying out to Memphis or Little Rock or somewhere and going and walking a property before he bought it. How cool would that be with Grandpa?
Dude, that would be super cool. Us going on his first business trip.
Right? Can you imagine like giving a kid that experience at age 13? Hey, listen, this is what we've got in store for you. And then just educating them. One of the biggest drawbacks that I think what most people have when they get started is just that fear of the unknown. But to be able to have that experience going out there with Grandpa and having somebody show him how to do it, man, awesome. And that's right. That's only his third one. He's got 5 more that he's going to buy in the next 7 years. Pretty cool.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Awesome.
And then as we had put this together, Cameron's like, man, this is super cool. You're so amazing, Anthony. I wonder what this would look like at 40 years. So we went ahead and extrapolated to 40 years. We're not going to go into as much detail, but this gets super cool. Okay. Now, this first column here, you can see this is where we're buying a house with the increase in cash value. Right? If it increases by 25, we're able to buy a house. Okay. But what I think is really cool here is, let's look at year 26. Right? He's buying house number 12 because we have enough cash value increase, but because some of the prior down payment or policy loans were paid off, he can buy 2 more. Right? And then you can just see here, by year 29, we could actually buy a house every single year. But we're only putting in $5,000, but he's able to buy a house every year. And I think it's pretty cool. You look at year 40, because the cash value increase, he's able to buy 2 homes. And because of other down payments were repaid, he can buy 3 more.
Wow.
So he's putting in $5,000, but he's buying $100,000 of cash flowing assets. To me, this is the power of infinite banking, because we're never breaking that compound interest curve. So our policy is continuing to grow whether we use it or not. So why not use it?
Yeah.
And so let's go over to the...
Before we go over there, Anthony, I'd just like to say that I'm 42. And I'm looking at this, and I'm a little upset, Mom and Dad. I'm not going to lie. I'm just kidding.
Or Grandpa.
Yeah, or Grandpa. Yeah, exactly. But all right, let's move on.
But you know what? We should all be upset.
Yeah.
Right? And what I tell people, and I think I got this from, Casanova Brooks, so I want to give him credit. But he had said nobody had taught him about finances and money. But he wants to make sure that his kids and grandkids cannot say the same. So I wasn't taught this. I wish my mom would have. But you know what? But I'm going to make sure that my kids and grandkids are going to be will not be able to say the same.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's move on. Let's move over here.
When you were pausing there, I thought you were going to give me a compliment, but
you should know. You should know better.
My
than
bad.
That. You
My
should
bad.
know better. Yeah.
Okay, so now kind of the same thing. If we look at now, we have 44 homes. And again, we're assuming zero appreciation.
Yeah.
Those homes, but anyways, so we have 4.4 million of homes, mortgages at 2.4. So we got a net real estate net worth of almost $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have the policy. We have 500 or so in there. Subtract the policy loans. We have $250,000 inside the policy. So really, when we add it together, we have $2.1 million. And here's what I think is cool. Anybody talking, really, particularly if they're talking bad about infinite banking and whole life, they're focused on that 584. They're focused on the cash value. But infinite banking is not an either or. We're not saying put the money in life insurance or real estate. Infinite banking is an and. You put the money in life insurance and allows you to buy real estate, so you actually have both. And I've been telling people, if you do this right, you should have more assets outside the policy than we do inside. But until now, I've never actually illustrated it.
Yeah.
But here, the cash value says we have 584, but we have over 2.1 million. Now, that's almost 4 times more that is in the policy.
That's crazy.
And so not only is he a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
Okay. His cash flow each year, $118,000 a year.
Anthony, you just mentioned that we have total cash flow of $118,000. We've got 2 columns here. If you could give us an example or an explanation of kind of what we're looking at here and how we get to 118.
Perfect. Okay. So 2 of the homes, the first 2 homes, those 30-year mortgages have been paid off.
Gotcha. And that's what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So what that means is we're in addition to the $2,500 that we're getting, since we no longer have a mortgage payment, we added that onto it. So those homes are not cash flowing $2,500 a year; they're cash flowing $68 a year.
Awesome.
So, but 42 of them were still had mortgages. So for that we have 105. But here's something else that we did not account for. We had paid off those 2 mortgages in year 39 or 8. So we had 2 years we collected an additional $13,000. 13 times 2 is more than 25.
Mm-hmm.
So in theory, we could have actually bought another house. Mm-hmm. Man, this thing can get too complicated. I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible so you can understand.
Exactly.
And you, I mean Cameron.
And at 40 years, those are lots of variables, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And speaking of variables, let's jump over here. Let's look about, you and I kind of were just brainstorming and started to talk about what if, some of the what ifs. Easy there. Over. Right. We touched on some of these, Anthony, right?
There's going to be more appreciation than zero over the next 40 years, right? We're not accounting for raising rents. And how do we put a price on teaching the next generation about money? It's one thing to say, oh, here's your investment account. Here's what I've done. Or why don't you look at these stocks? This is where we're teaching the next generation to fish.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think kind of what we're doing here with infinite banking, we're not just teaching them how to fish. We're teaching them how to man a fishing boat, right? It's a lot bigger than that. How much did we talk about death benefit?
0.
And I'll tell you, to be honest, I have no idea what the death benefit is at year 40. No idea. Don't care, right? But what I did look at from the podcast is the death benefit in year 20 was $2 million. Okay, so that's $2 million less of term insurance that he doesn't need. Maybe he doesn't even need term insurance. I mean, imagine having that passive income of $20,000. And we didn't, all we're showing here is a contribution my wife and I are making each year. That dude's going to have a job.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's getting some money for Christmas, holidays, all that stuff. Where's he going to put it? At the beginning, he's probably going to put it in his piggy bank, okay? But once I take him to one of his rental properties and say, hey, you move that money, why don't you put it towards a policy loan? And that will allow us to buy the next house even sooner.
Mm-hmm.
And then we answered, what if he does it for another 20 years, right?
It's the same.
Yeah.
Same question, right? This one, we'll move on to this one. It's not about the illustration, doubled net worth over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've touched on this, right? I hope that's kind of the big takeaway for what this is we don't want cash sitting. We want you guys to put the cash value to work. So this is just another example of that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cash versus IBC. Yeah. Buy a house every year, starting year 34.
Exactly. And one thing we didn't touch on, will you go over to year 1 real quick? Now, I tell you, one thing you need to know about IBC is you put in $1. The first year, you don't have $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
We have 31, right? And that's what stops a lot of people, and I get it. But we got to look long term. Look at all that this has done. And so we're starting a business, and there's going to be a little slow start, but maybe that first year you don't have the full $5,000, but you look at year 34, it increases by $25,000. So you are going to be good.
Yeah.
Cameron, in summary, I hope what this was able to explain is that it's not about the illustration. It's about what you do with the cash value. Oftentimes you hear us talk about, it's not about the product, it's about the process. Right? It's not about the cash value. It's about how you leverage it to create wealth. And by using and storing your money inside a policy and leveraging against it, we're never breaking the compound interest curve. After 40 years, he bought 44 houses. Whether he bought that or not, the cash value is still going to be the same. So let's start buying some assets.
Well said. Anthony, I get excited about this stuff because, again, it's more of the educational piece. How do we teach that next generation, right, how to fish for themselves? So, great piece. Well done. I do have to give you a compliment, right? You put a lot of time and effort into kind of preparing this, and it's awesome, man. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for Vance, and I'm excited for these listeners, so hopefully that gives them a little application. So,
go make it a fantastic day.
Take care.